Hello and welcome to the second in this year's Ask an Expert webinar series. My name is Tika Newton. You probably know me as the International Watershed Coordinator. I work for the Lake of the Woods Water Sustainability Foundation and the International Joint Commission, and I work with many partners around the Rainy Lake of the Woods Basin. I'll be your host for today's webinar and all those that we have coming up in the future. We'll have a series restarting again in the fall after a bit of a summer break. So this is our last webinar before we take a bit of a hiatus over the summer. The Ask an Expert series is an opportunity for those of us who work on watershed issues to share our work with the wider world and for you to ask us questions. Our hope is that by opening up these discussions, we can learn from each other and strengthen the relationships that help us better care for this place that we all love. We recorded our first episode of this year on May 15th. It was focused on better understanding who does what when it comes to managing water in our watershed. If you're keen to learn more about watershed governance and who regulates water levels from Rainy Lake right through to Lake of the Woods, you can visit the Lake of the Woods Water Sustainability Foundation website at lowwsf.com, and you'll be able to find the recording of any of our webinars from this year's series there. Before we get started on this week's webinar, I wanted to quickly go through some of the Zoom functions in case you're not familiar with them or just need a refresher. On your computer, you can see that there's a taskbar. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, this is where you'll be able to mute or unmute yourself. You can choose your computer audio settings using speakers or headsets or earbuds. Everyone's muted as they come into the call today. Later in the webinar, if you want to be able to speak, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you or invite you to unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to speak. You can also use the reactions button at the bottom of the menu. That's where you can get the raise hand function. You can post questions in the Q&A or in the chat. We will ask you to hold questions until the end. So we're going to have 3 presentations today, and then we'll do all the questions at the end rather than breaking it up into 3 sections. So you can access the chat window at any time through that bottom menu. You can type questions or comments in there, and I will be trying to keep my eye on it so that you can be responded to in real time as quickly as possible. So now let's move into today's webinar. I'm going to introduce our speakers. We're joined by several colleagues who work with 3 different organizations that are active throughout the watershed. They focus on a number of different issues, but today we're speaking about aquatic invasive species and community monitoring programs. So over the next half hour to 40 minutes or so, we're going to share information with you about what these organizations do, the different ways that they work to protect, preserve, and improve water quality and the health of aquatic ecosystems in our area. We'll have 3 presentations, as I mentioned, and we'll leave plenty of time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. So our first speaker today will be Chris Herc. Chris is Grand Council Treaty 3's environmental manager. He works to lead Grand Council's Guardians and community-based monitoring initiatives to build and elevate capacity for Indigenous-led stewardship and protection of the lands and waters in Treaty 3. Through these initiatives, Chris leads capacity building workshops and field monitoring with communities for species at risk, surface water quality, and invasive species. Chris has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental and Natural Resources with over 10 years of experience, and he's worked across Canada in the field of wildlife conservation before he settled into his role at Grand Council. He's always excited to work with the Treaty 3 communities and build new environmental monitoring initiatives and partnerships for the nation. Amanda Weber will be our second speaker. Amanda is the Aquatic Invasive Species Program Supervisor for Cook County, Minnesota Soil and Water Conservation District, and she's based in Grand Marais, Minnesota. The position started 8 years ago with Amanda developing AIS, that's Aquatic Invasive Species Programming, using the Minnesota AIS Prevention Aid. Amanda will give an overview of Cook County, Minnesota's various AIS prevention plan objective implementations. Ashley Hoffmeister is the Executive Director of the Lake of the Woods District Stewardship Association, or LOUDSA. She is joined today by 3 members of her 2023 Lake Smart team, Luke Boucher, Tessa Penner, and Mimi Mastro-Mateo. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Ashley right now and let her introduce her team.
Thank you very much, Tika, and welcome everybody. We're really happy to be here. So I will introduce my crew. So we're lucky to have three very lovely post-secondary education students working with us this summer. Our first that I'm going to introduce is Luc Boucher, and he is a second-year concurrent education student at Brock University. And he's really happy to be back home in Kenora for the summer, working with us at LOUDSA to help spread awareness on various environmental issues in and around Lake of the Woods. And he looks forward to educating and working with the community to protect the environment and keep our lakes and waterways clean for generations to come. Next up is Mimi Master Mateo, and she was born and raised in Kenora and grew up admiring the beauty that this region holds. Mimi recently finished her first year as a biomedical student and is a varsity swimmer at McGill University. She is thrilled to be back in Kenora for the summer and to be a part of the Lake Smart team. She's also looking forward to getting involved in the community, making new connections, and helping educate others on maintaining Lake of the Woods longevity for future generations. And last but not least, we have Tessa Penner, and she's going into her second year of education at the University of Victoria, and she is also very excited to be back in Kenora for the summer. Tessa looks forward to working with LOUDSA and learning from the amazing team of people. She is thrilled to be a part of the team and working towards keeping Lake of the Woods one of the most beautiful regions, and is excited to try some new things, learn, and spend the summer outdoors. And as Tika mentioned, I am the executive director at LOUDSA. I was born and raised in Kenora myself, and live and breathe all things environmental sustainability and stewardship with my family. So yeah, and I'll just tell you a little bit about our Lake Smart program if you're not familiar with it. Our Lake Smart program is an outreach program that's unique to our area. And it is designed to offer information to shoreline residents and anyone who enjoys the lakes on environmental ways that we can live and play green at the lake.
Thanks, Ashley. Okay, I think we are ready to get started. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you. Chris will give an overview of the community monitoring work that's happening across Treaty 3. We're then going to hear from Amanda, and then finally the Lake Smart team. So I will disappear for a bit, and Chris, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I do have an old presentation that I can screen share for this. You know, while you were talking to you guys, I just had a quick look through some stuff on invasive species. But I guess, you know, I've been working at Grand Council Treaty 3 for, you know, a little over 5 years now, and it didn't start out with invasive species. I was originally hired to work with the 28 Treaty 3 communities to start up a community-based water monitoring program. So that's kind of how we got led towards the invasive species track of work. We do a lot of community engagement, a lot of community outreach for that community-based water monitoring program. And so working with community youth, you know, community band office, lands and resources technicians, you know, we get a lot of input and a lot of feedback, you know, from elders and knowledge keepers as well on what we should be focusing on for the environment. And so something that's always been mentioned is invasive species and their impacts on Treaty 3 communities. And I guess something that's come up over, you know, a lot of different conversations is, you know, the impacts that invasive species can have on Treaty 3 communities and First Nations communities, you know, across Canada. And as, you know, someone who's not from Kenora, I grew up here in New Brunswick, and, you know, when I hear invasive species, you know, a lot of the times in the past, it's always been, well, yeah, that sucks. They're not supposed to be here. You know, they have bad impacts, but, you know, ultimately it didn't really have a lot of impact on like my life as a whole, at least to my knowledge, what I could think of. But so going out to communities, you know, these impacts are felt a lot more in harsh ways. So thinking of Kenora area, you know, we have a lot of aquatic invasive species here. You know, rusty crayfish, spiny water flea, purple loosestrife, you know, flowering rushfish grow by the water, in the water. You know, there's been some sightings of zebra mussel, and a lot of these, you know, have impacts that we don't think about. So, you know, rusty crayfish in particular, you know, that eats tons of vegetation out there, and wild rice is, you know, a hugely important species for many Treaty 3 communities. And so those rusty crayfish can have an impact on the populations of wild rice, which are already under stress from, you know, fluctuating water levels across Treaty 3. You can think about purple loosestrife and flowering rush. They're emergent vegetation out of the water. They can crowd out, growing wild rice areas. Spiny water fleas can have impacts on young walleye, which are a major food source for communities as well. So there's a lot of invasive species having a lot of impact out there. And yeah, so it's just been something we've been given direction by communities to put a little more focus on. And I guess I'll share what we've been doing over the last couple of years to kind of meet those concerns and, leading towards future invasive species work as well. So I think I do have the ability to share my screen here. Just give me 1 second. All right, is that working for everyone?
That's great. Thanks, Chris.
All right, is that still showing up?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure before I plow on. Yeah, so just like I said, this is an older one prepared by our environmental monitoring technician, Michaela Novak. We had it for an Treaty 3 stewardship gathering a couple months ago, but I think this does fit the theme pretty well here. So just thinking about community monitoring, working with communities, our goals are to protect and preserve traditional waters across the territory, collect baseline data across the territory, and harmonize traditional knowledge and Western knowledge systems together as guided by Manitou, Aki, and Akinagewin, which is a law of Treaty 3 that kind of guides all environmental protection work in the territory. So, we just had a couple slides here on water quality. So I mentioned all community monitoring that we have did stem from our community-based water quality monitoring program, which is where we go to communities. We work with interested youth to offer capacity building, training on how to use water quality monitoring equipment, like water quality meters, collecting water samples to send away for testing, for heavy metals, nutrients in the water, E. coli, and other initiatives as well, like putting temperature loggers across shoreline locations and communities and across Treaty 3, which has also led to fish habitat work, where we go out in communities, to community identified areas to take aerial photographs with drones, underwater photographs of fish habitat with aquatic drones as well. And a little bit of mercury sampling in fish. Most of this I could talk all day on, but we're here to talk about aquatic invasive species today, so I won't touch too much on it. But for zebra mussels, this is kind of what did bring us into aquatic invasive species work across Treaty 3. I think it was back in either 2020 or 2021, the Invasive Species Center in Ontario had a 10-year micro grant that they had out for application, and by micro grant it was $1,000. So a big emphasis on the micro there. And so just kind of thinking about what we could do for invasive species in particular with $1,000, we did gravitate towards creating what's called a zebra mussel settlement sampler. So in that top right photo, a settlement sampler can really be anything of your design. It's just a spot where zebra mussel veliger, which is baby free floating zebra mussels when they hatch out of an egg, it gives them a spot to settle down on, grow into an adult zebra mussel, and just something you can easily pull off a dockside location or from a shoreside location and visually check it for zebra mussel growth. So like it could be a lot of different designs. I've heard of ones where it's, those terracotta flower pots, flipped upside down with a rope going through it, super cheap to make, but a little more fragile. So we followed some schematics that I found from like the state Minnesota government website on how to build one here. So it's, some PVC plastic squares, holes drilled down the middle, and eye bolt with some PVC plastic spacers in between, and, a rope so you can hang it off the dock. So we built a bunch of those, sent them around to Treaty 3 communities, mailed a bunch out as well to community members who expressed interest in it. And, we have checked them over the years. We've had people check in with us. Nothing has settled on it for zebra mussels down in Nowkamagwaning First Nation. We did set up 4 of them, and so every time I'm down there, I do pull them out off the dock and visually inspect. And so there was some growth on it. It was a little too small to tell if it was going to be a mussel or, you know, maybe just an aquatic organism growing on there. But, you know, over the last couple of years, we haven't had any confirmed sightings. But I did mention that there are zebra mussels that have been found in Treaty 3. And so just to expand on that a little more, what I mean by that is, I think it was in 2019 in Shoal Lake, someone had collected a water sample that was sent away for testing. And so those zebra mussel veligers, those little baby free floating organisms, and by baby, I mean like microscopic, where you have to view them with a microscope, was found in water samples taken out of Shoal Lake. And since then, down on the US side of Lake of the Woods, more zebra mussel veligers have been found in water samples taken. So just to kind of expand on the work that we've been doing, you know, we've purchased some specific net for collecting zebra mussel veligers if they're there, from popular boat launches, docking locations across Treaty 3. And last year was our first attempt at doing this. We did get our net. It was on back order for most of the season last year. So we got a couple samples sent into a lab for testing that we took in the Kenora area from Devil's Gap Marina and a couple other places, like the Harborfront Dock and I think a few other places. And, you know, those went in for testing and no zebra mussels were found, veligers found in the samples. So our goals going into the next couple of years is to just kind of go all across Treaty 3, go to each First Nation community, any kind of popular docking area, whether it's in Morrison, Atikokan, and have samples taken for veliger testing across Treaty 3. We have done a couple more bit of Phragmites, or not Phragmites, getting ahead of myself, a couple other bit of invasive species work. So just through the micro grant, Zebra Mussel Settlement Samplers, we were approached by the Invasive Species Center again last year to do a bit of Phragmites work for the Kenora area. And so if you're unfamiliar with Phragmites, I do just actually want to share one image here. It's not baked into the presentation, unfortunately. So I'm just gonna, hopefully this will bring it up. Is this viewable to everyone right now?
Yep, it's working.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So yeah, so this is Phragmites. It's, you know, very closely related to a grass, or maybe it is in the grass family, I'm not sure. But I guarantee everyone's seen these along the roadside, especially in the winter, where you just see these tall seed heads, the dead ones poking up out of the snow. So we got a small bit of funding to do some testing around the Kenora area, and that was mapping out growing locations of native and, well, getting ahead of myself here again, just Phragmites. And we did DNA testing where we collected some leaf samples to send away for testing to tell if they were in fact invasive or native or not. Both native and invasive can look very, very similar to each other. On the right-hand side of the presentation there is a little bit of a key that can help you identify between the two. But we actually found up here in Northwestern Ontario that all of our DNA samples were considered or were tested to be the native subspecies, but they also exhibited a lot of the invasive characteristics. So we found like DNA testing was the only way to tell. So going into this year, we're getting a little bit more money to focus on Phragmites across Treaty 3. So instead of just, you know, keeping it to the Kenora area, we're going to be going out to more First Nations across Treaty 3, kind of the more larger municipalities to do some more mapping. So Dryden, Fort Francis, Ignace, maybe Atikokan if we can get out there. And yeah, just do more mapping of Phragmites growing locations and do a lot more DNA testing. Last year, when I say we only did a few, we did 7, but this year, hopefully we're going to be able to do 100 plus DNA tests for invasive Phragmites and hopefully get ahead of the curve. So the point of this is if we find invasive Phragmites, it can be chemically treated, removed, and before it becomes an established, you know, pest invasive species here in Treaty 3. And just as, you know, an example, we did the mapping here. This is a bit of a older map. Unfortunately, it does say that there was invasive Phragmites found, when in fact there was none found. But this is just the areas that we got out to in Kenora last year for the Phragmites testing. And I just want to touch on one last one here. For the past couple of years, I've been trying to pull in funding to do some purple loosestrife mapping and removal across Treaty 3. Unfortunately, if you're familiar with invasive species work, you already know that, it's a critically underfunded area, like a lot of environmental things in Canada. And so we haven't been able to pull in any money dedicated to purple loosestrife yet, but that hasn't stopped us. Just driving around to all the 28 communities, we often see it growing, during its flowering season. So in July and August, really into September. And so what we've been doing is using free resource, iNaturalist, highly recommended to everyone. We've created a Treaty 3 layer there, which you can see outlined. And we've also created a Treaty 3 specific project, which just kind of collects all people's, not just our own staff's sightings of purple loosestrife in Treaty 3. And so we can kind of get an early catalog of where it's growing across Treaty 3. And when we're able to finally pull in some money for more mapping and more of the removal aspect of it, hopefully we'll already know where those priority areas are for purple loosestrife and be able to hit the ground running, with that work. And yeah, so that's all we've been doing for purple loosestrife, Phragmites and zebra mussel so far. We have a lot of plans, to expand on what we've been doing over this year, which is going to happen, but hopefully even more into the future. And, there's always other invasive species that we could be doing some work on too, hopefully in the future, whether that's, rusty crayfish, flowering rush, spiny water flea, European frogbit. I'm sure there's tons of terrestrial ones as well. So yeah, I don't want to take up the entire time here. So I guess I'll hand it off to Tika for who's ever next. And, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thanks so much, Chris. That was really interesting. It's always really cool to hear who's doing what around these invasives that we see regularly around our area. Okay, if you want to stop your screen sharing, I will hand it over now to Amanda from Cook County Soil and Water Conservation District. So Amanda, take it away.
Hello, friends. Okay, let's get into AIS prevention in Cook County, Minnesota, which is going to be different than Ontario. But let's figure out the wonderful world here that we're in. I think I can get my screen. There we go. So I'm going to treat you like first graders, including myself, for this slide. Here's a map of Cook County. Excuse me. Here's a map of Minnesota with the counties in it, and then the red is Cook County, and within Cook County, the purple land is Grand Portage, Band of Chippewa. The green is United States Forest Service, Superior National Forest land. The yellow is DNR state land. The white is private land. So this shows that 80% of the land in Cook County is public land. It also shows, well, coincidentally, it also means that 80% of the area in Cook County does not have cell phone reception. So in 2014, the county adopted the AIS prevention plan to deliver AIS prevention information to the public. And there's 5 objectives. We'll go through them here. First objective is education, so reaching out to the younger people. We get to go out in the fall and in the spring. So I've been doing this for 8 years, and I get to see the kids grow up throughout their education, and it's been really fun to change up the games and interact with them and know how their knowledge keeps expanding of how to protect our natural resources. So when we're inside, we play a lot of games and look at specimens. This top left picture, top right picture is the kids are pretending that they're pirates, and they're looking for the AISs on the Armady ship. And so they're just running around doing fun kid stuff. And then they remember those games, and they come back when they see me in the grocery store, and we just start playing the game again. Here's another slide of outdoor education. We have Take a Kid Fishing Day in the top left, where we get to take kids out, and sometimes they get to catch a trout, sometimes they don't. We've rented pontoon with weed rakes so they can look at the aquatic plants that are in the water and help identify them with the booklets that we have. In the bottom left, we bring waders out to some of the sites so then they can practice looking for zooplanktons, finding water fleas, or doing other water quality parameter measurements. This bottom right is like a tag your it game, but with rusty crayfish and native crayfish, and then largemouth bass, and just seeing the ecosystem dynamic when rusty crayfish come into a water body. The second objective in the prevention plan is outreach, which I think it's just outreach is education for adults. And luckily, Grand Marais is a tourist town on Lake Superior. So people, there's lots of festivals, number one. And when people are here, they're on vacation. So the conversations that I get to have when I'm tabling at different places they're really meaningful and impactful. I get to know these people and understand what makes them care about the water quality. So what techniques would fit with them so that they can do the prevention techniques needed to save our water. The bottom left is a rusty crayfish boil. Rusty crayfish are big everywhere. And then the bottom right, I get to do outreach even in the winter. This table looks a little sad, but I've gotten better materials now. Here's a third objective, which is marketing. So these are just examples of some of the articles and newspaper ads, posters that have been out in the county. This YouTube ad in the bottom, it just launched Memorial Day weekend in America. So that last weekend in May. And there's hundreds of different AIS videos out on YouTube, but I wanted to create one with local celebrities for Cook County because we're very much a local community. Either you're a local or you're a tourist. And I was able to get the mayor and the commissioner, a hunting and fishing guide, and a musician to be on this video. And it's been a really big hit for people that live here to be able to see someone that they can relate to and recognize, like, oh, they think it's important to clean, drain, dry, and pull your boat plug and make sure you dump your bait, or you don't dump your bait, excuse me. And then we have more marketing. This on the left, Clean Your Johnson, is the most popular print campaign that I've done. There's people take pictures of them. They're in bathrooms and resorts. They're just all the businesses that have a sense of humor will take them. And people will call me from back home, North Dakota, Iowa, asking if I could mail them a poster so they could put it up in their garage or one of their businesses because they think it's clever. Then on the upper right are the DNR, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. These are the signs that they supply for public water accesses. There's the invasive species alert. So the lakes that are infested with something will have this orange sign. The bottom is a billboard ad that is popular along the roadways in Minnesota. So there's 2 billboards that are in Cook County that have a different background image of people fishing or canoeing, but then they say clean, drain, dry. Here's an image of some swag. There's the pink Fish Local sign. All my t-shirts have the same Fish Local logo on it, but every year I change the color. This year I chose this pink color, but I've now realized that a lot of the people here are also a very pink color. So sometimes they look like they're not wearing anything when they put on this pink shirt. And then there's some hats. The Stop Aquatic Hitchhiker hat are freebies. And if you have a sense of humor, you can get the Clean Your Johnson hat, a bait bag. Wait, don't dump your bait, to help you remember, bring water with you if you want to keep your live bait. You can't transport lake water. And this middle poster is an event that's happening in a couple weekends. So we're partnering with the local brewery, Voyager Brewing Company. And this is the first year, but we're hoping that it'll happen every year moving forward, that we'll have one summer invasive brew that will be available for the season. And then we'll have a launch party at the beginning of the summer with games. We're going to have a crayfish race, a mystery snail race. I'm going to have a rusty crayfish boil, just other fun games. And then there's no rusty crayfish actually in this beer, the rusty crazy hazy. Then other examples for in the future, we're hoping to do like a twisted tansy or a mystery snail ale or a lupine lager. I think those are the ones that we have so far. Here's some restaurant goodies that I give out, a coloring mat and some coasters. This is a map. I should have brought it. There's just a little map that we hand out, and businesses really like this. So this is Lake County and Cook County, which Lake and Cook County border each other. And all the lakes that are infested with an invasive species are outlined in red. And then there's a legend on the map to tell you what invasive species is present in the lake. And Cook County there's 93 public water accesses in the county. And that's important because the way that Minnesota does the AIS prevention aid is they give out a certain prorated amount of dollars based on how many public water accesses and how many trailered parking spaces your county has. So there's 93 public water accesses in Cook County, 846 total inland lakes, and 22 of those lakes are infested with, we have spiny water fleas, mystery snails, and rusty crayfish are the invasive species here in Cook County. So we're not dealing with zebra mussels yet, or Eurasian milfoil, starry stonewort. So far it's been a lot of prevention and making sure that what we have isn't spreading to further lakes. Watercraft inspections are another component of the prevention plan. This is an extension of outreach and education. So we have these people that are out at landings. They're happy and smiling most of the time, unless it's black fly season or 45 and raining with gale force winds. But one of the best ways to reach water recreationalists is through one-on-one in-person contact. And this is the way to do that. So they are the same with like the outreach booths. They get to have these conversations with people and figure out what is important to them and get them to understand why AIS prevention is essential. Another important part of brushing your teeth and wearing your seatbelt. In 2017, Cook County partnered with the sheriff deputies. So they have overtime hours that they spend at some of the landings here doing watercraft inspections. So they'll be stationed at a landing, just like the watercraft inspectors, wearing their full uniform, and having the law enforcement presence is key into maintaining the AIS law compliance. So when the people are driving by, they see like, this is serious, like you will get a fine for leaving your boat plug in or for transporting water in your bait. Here's a chart with just data of the watercraft inspections over the last 7 years. We also have one car wash in the county, and that has an on-demand water heater that was supplied by my program. So the water that comes out of the nozzle is 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't know what that is Celsius, I'm sorry. And then some of the resorts around town and around up the trail in the woods have these pressure washers also, that if you drive by with your boat, you will get a courtesy boat wash. And the car wash one is also free if you are washing your boat. Monitoring last, I know Chris covered most of this, but you have to know where the invasive species are in order for you to be able to prevent them from spreading. So doing more crayfish trapping. We have some zebra mussel sediment plates out that have come back negative all the time. This is the bottom left is how we tow for spiny water fleas, and then trap for crayfish. See if there's native or rusties or transporting around. Last year, this is just a fun slide, partnership with Crawdaddy. So these are two guys that really wanted to trap crayfish and see if they could make that into a business. They got a grant from University of Minnesota on sustainable food sources in local communities. And then I was able to give them a grant through my program. So they formed Crawdaddies, and they go out to a lake that's infested with rusty crayfish, trap them, and they have boils, rusty crayfish boils all over. And this summer, they are booked every weekend. They have an event, And they have all these restaurants throughout the state of Minnesota that are trying to get shipments of crayfish. So if you can't beat the invasive species, you have to eat them. And that is my presentation. Here's rusty crayfish and emerald ash borer a couple weekends ago at the Herring Fest at a restaurant.
Amanda, this presentation was truly hilarious. I had no idea AIS prevention work could be so funny. It's really great. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to hand it over for our last presentation to the Lake Smart team. Luke, Tessa, and Mimi, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. We're just going to pop something up on our screen quickly, and then we'll get started.
It's recording.
Did it work?
I don't know.
Where
Your
is it?
screen's here.
Okay.
They can definitely hear us.
Can everyone
You're
see?
good, you guys. It's working.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh,
perfect.
now you're back to
Okay.
your screen sharing,
Oh,
but it
just
did work
kidding.
before.
Okay.
There we go.
That's
That's the
good?
right
Okay.
one.
Wonderful.
Okay, perfect. So like Ashley introduced us, we are the Lake Smart team, and we are a program put on by LAUDSA. It is just a little introduction about LAUDSA. It's a membership-based organization of about 2,600 members. It is non-for-profit and aims to serve the community and help enhance the sustainability of the Lake of the Woods region.
Mimi, I'm just going to interrupt you for a sec. I think that I expect it looks like this for everybody, but your like little icon of your, that. Move that out of the way over to a corner somewhere where it's not blocking
Oh.
stuff.
My goodness. Sorry, I'm a new Zoom.
It's okay.
Okay.
That's annoying. Okay. I'll let you figure that out.
We'll get
Or
there.
we'll
get there.
we'll just live with it if we need to, but if you can make it smaller, that would be great.
Is that better?
That's better. Yeah, just
Oh,
type
there
it
we
across.
go.
There we
There,
go.
that's it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So, oh, we went too far. Mimi, how do we go back? Okay. So we'd like to give you a bit of an overview on what is Lake Smart, what we do, and then answer any questions you might have about us or LAUDSA, the Lake of the Woods District Stewardship Association in general. Some of the common themes that Lake Smart focuses on are the promotion of sustainable living through environmental education and community outreach. And then kind of the core values of Lake Smart is mainly focusing on our priority of environmental stewardship. We practice environmental stewardship by maintaining current understandings of issues and best practices. And we do this through partnering with other organizations and communicating with experts in stuff like this, these presentations. The second part of that is communicating information to our members and the public so that others can make informed decisions. And then we also host several events that we will talk about later where you can get all this information that we learn.
So a huge part of our work is to do with invasive species. So invasive species are clearly starting to dominate around the Kenora area. Specific invasive species found in our area are flowering rush, purple loosestrife, zebra mussels, rusty crayfish, spiny water fleas, and the invasive version of Phragmites. So as the Lake Smart team, you're able to identify these species by their unique characteristics. For example, invasive rusty crayfish have a rusty color on their thoracic. They also have black bands around the claws and also an oval gap when they close their claws. So identifying invasive species in our area is important so we can educate the lake users on the risks of invasive species and how to prevent their spread. This is a crucial part of our programming since invasive species are adversely affecting native habitats and bioregion, causing ecological, environmental, and economic damage to the Kenora area. So we've partnered with local organizations to implement programs to directly manage the spread of invasive species, specifically through our boat watch stations, monitoring kits, and our beetle releases, which we will discuss further.
Okay, so one of our monitoring programs that we have is Becoming a Citizen Scientist, which is a settlement sampler program. And this is a great way for community members to get involved and to help us out in monitoring the spread of zebra mussels in Lake of the Woods. So pretty much, like Chris was saying, you just drop one off the end of your dock, and then the little baby zebra mussels will attach onto it, and we can map out where they are in Lake of the Woods right now. So yeah, if you want to become a citizen scientist, you can contact us and look at our website. There's lots of information.
A second program involved with our invasive species work is our boat wash stations. So part of our way to encourage boaters to reduce the spread of invasive species and abide by the Invasive Species Act is our boat wash station program. This program involves us, the Lakesmark team, to set up weekly boat wash stations. This year we're doing it on Thursdays and Fridays at local boat launches around the Kenora area. The whole process is only about 5 minutes per boat. And with the boaters' permission, we pressure wash the boats and trailers entering or exiting Lake of the Woods with hot water. This program aims to kill and remove invasive specimens and bacteria that are left on the boats and trailers, while simultaneously honoring the Invasive Species Act and educating boaters. Some of our local boat launches we partnered with have been the Kenora Rec Center and the Anishinaabe Park. And this year, the Lakesmark team has reached out to several partners in hopes of expanding to various locations around our area.
Another very large aspect of our programming is doing dock visits. So we're primarily on Lake of the Woods throughout the summer, going to various camps around town and in farther parts of the lake. But you can also find us on like smaller lakes occasionally if you book a dock visit. So at these talks, we talk about shoreline health, how you can prevent erosion, runoff, and what other problems or concerns that the camp owner may have about their waterways and about their shoreline health. So you can book a dock visit in person or a virtual one on our website, where we'll come to you and we can specifically answer any questions that you may have about your property.
So the main part, or another main part of the Lakesmark team, aside from our invasive species work and our dock visits, is our kids programming. And since LOUDSTA's vision to preserve Lake of the Woods is generational, what better way to get future generations involved now? So the Lakesmark team offers a number of kids programming events to involve Kenora's youth and educate them on our environment and the steps necessary to take care of it. We have consistently partnered with the City of Kenora's day camp. So there's about 15 to 20 kids per class, and we take them on weekly adventures such as drainage painting, some fun interactive games, and just whatever we can come up with year to year. The Lakesmark team's main goal this year was to expand our youth education into schools. We presented to various classes at our Valley View and Evergreen School about watersheds, human impact on the environment, filtration systems, the water cycle, and we also did a critter crawl. We used interactive activities to help solidify the learning in both French and English. And we saw great feedback from each class, and each and every student took LOUDSTA's main message away, which was pretty incredible to see. So since we value our youth, at any booth we set up around town or at the farmers market, we make sure that there are activities for kids or artifacts that interest a younger demographic.
You can also find us at the farmers market every Wednesday, and we have a booth that has lots of info about invasive species in our area and various environmental concerns. And there's also, like Mimi was saying, fun and hands-on activities for kids. So lots of learning is taking place. We'll have our water table out to talk about watersheds and do demonstrations like that. So it'll be a very exciting time, and we hope lots of people will stop by to learn lots.
And then some of our events where you can get involved with us, or stuff we've already done or continue to do, are our shoreline cleanups. Those occur once or twice a month, where we set a predetermined location and time, and then we go and clean up the shorelines, and we clean up all the garbage in that. That bottom picture is from our cleanup in May along the green belt in Kenora here. And then we're also doing another one tomorrow at Garrow Park. And we're always looking for volunteers to come join us. We also have pictures of our seedling days where annually the Lake of the Woods District Stewardship Association sells seedlings for people to plant. We sell red and white pines. This year, or we average about 10,000 seedlings sold annually. And then so far throughout past years, we've gotten up to around 300,000 in total. And then we also do a metal and electronic waste pickup day in August, where we will set up bins and you can bring your scrap metal, your scrap batteries, anything really that you're trying to get rid of. And you can bring it to us for free, and then we'll haul it away free of charge to help kind of clean up the area. And then this year, we're also doing, as Mimi mentioned earlier, a beetle release, where we will release their Galarusella beetles, and they only eat purple loosestrife. So it's biocontrol to help control the spread of purple loosestrife in our area. And then the nice part about that is that they only eat the purple loosestrife, and then they'll die off when they're all done cleaning out the area. So yeah.
And looking forward to summer 2023. These are all the various events that you'll be able to find us at. Our Celebrate Lake Life event is on June 24th under the Jarnell Contracting Pavilion, or the White Cap. And so you'll be able to find us there for lots of educational booths, food, fun, lots of kids activities. So it'll be a really great day. But just look out for our social media posts to see where we'll be this summer.
Thank you so much, and we'd love to answer any questions you guys have.
Thanks so much, you guys. That's great. If you want to stop screen sharing, we can just open this up. So this is kind of your chance as the audience to start thinking about questions that you might have. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat or in the Q&A. While you're giving some thought to that, I did want to mention a couple of other monitoring programs and things that are available if you're interested in them in our area. So the two things that I wanted to talk about, I'm just going to share my screen again now quickly so that you can see these. Oh, didn't mean to make it go from the start. Let's try that again. Go from here. So one of them is CocoRAS. This is the Community Collaborative Rain, Hails, and Snow Network. So this is a type of citizen monitoring that is available to people in the US and Canada. It's a free program. It started at the Colorado Climate Center at Colorado State University in 1998, but has been expanded through partnerships with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the National Science Foundation, and the National Weather Service in the US. So that it's now open to anyone in Canada and the US who wants to do backyard precipitation data collection. So you can collect information about rainfall and snowfall. And that actually is used by water levels managers in our basin to help estimate snowpack and figure out what the water levels may be after the spring freshet when all the snow melts. So that's a really valuable one. If you want to get involved, this is the website for it, cocoras.org. Another one that I just started participating in this year is something called the National Lake Blitz through Living Lakes Canada. So this is a relatively new program that's in its third year. Anyone across Canada can participate in this. The goal of this program is to create a long-term climate information data bank. So for freshwater lakes all across the country, volunteers go out every second week over the summer between May and September, and at a minimum take temperature and what is the other one? I'm doing the enhanced level 2 program. So we're doing SECI depth, which is water clarity, temperature, pH, and taking photos of any kind of invasive species and that sort of thing. So if you're interested in getting involved in this one as well, it's Living Lakes Canada. So the monitoring season has already started, but I think that you can still sign up for it if you want to do it now. Okay, while we answer a question here, I'm just going to leave this slide up so that you can jot down any of these links and useful resources if you would like. So Bree has a question for Chris. Have you observed flowering rush in any of the communities?
That's a good question, Bree. And the answer is no, because we are not specifically out there looking for them right now. I would not be surprised if, there is flowering rush in many of the Treaty 3 communities out there, or, in the surrounding area, but it's not, unfortunately, it's not a species that we've been able to put a focus on yet. So we haven't been specifically looking for it.
Chris, where do you, is there a database that is accessible or that you maintain where people can submit information? Like if people throughout the Treaty 3 region do see sightings of AIS, can they report them to you? Should they use iNaturalist, or what? What do they do?
I mean, that's a good point. I was going to say, now that we're using iNaturalist to track purple loosestrife, it's something we could easily set up just to track any other sightings of any invasive species or any other species out there through iNaturalist. If anyone wants to report a sighting to me, we can always create an internal database. Something we have been working on. It's a method of mapping. It's the Treaty 3 geoportal, and so that's database that we have available to communities. Unfortunately, not publicly available, but it's definitely something that we could map out flowering rush or any other species out there as well with.
Yeah, I put the link to just the main Grand Council Territorial Planning Unit page on this page of useful links and resources, and you can access the geoportal through there. But as Chris said, it's not a public portal; it's just for communities in Treaty 3. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks. Just going to see if there are any other questions here. No, I don't see any yet. Okay. I think maybe I'll switch off of this slide just for a minute, because I do want to take a second to promote the upcoming webinars before we run out of time here. So as I mentioned at the top of the hour, this is the second in our Ask an Expert seminar series for this year. We will do 4 more of them, but not until the fall. So we're going to take a break over the summer because people are busy in the summer being out on the lake. We're going to come back in the week of September 11th. So I'm pretty sure September 11th is the date. At 1 p.m. we'll have a webinar on climate change in our basin. This will feature at least 3 different speakers from various university research programs. Leif Olmanson from the University of Minnesota, who works with satellite imagery to track climate change in our area. Dr. Scott Higgins from IISD Experimental Lakes area, who will talk about the research that's being done at ELA to document climate change and the impacts on freshwater lakes in our region. And Dr. Clara Nelligan, who is an expert in paleoecology and has particularly looked at cold water fish species like lake trout and the impacts that climate change is having on them. We'll have a project update later in September on one of the big projects that we're hoping to get underway this year, which is the second phase of setting water quality setting recommendations for setting water quality objectives and water quality alerts in the basin. Toward the end of September, we will do a recap of the work that was done over the field season. And then finally, toward the end of the year, we'll just do a recap of the whole year's worth of work on Lake of the Woods and look ahead to the following year. So feel free to register for those when the registration links come up in August. Okay, Chris is just sharing this. Hopefully this is coming up, but here is the link for the iNaturalist. I will actually get out of screen sharing and then just post it into the chat for everybody to see.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was posting that for everyone.
I think it only went
Yeah,
into
I said it as a
me.
direct, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. It's okay. I can get it out of here, I think. I'll fumble around here and get it there. All right, so you can all see the iNaturalist link there in the chat now. Okay, that's great. Okay, so one last call for questions, if anybody has them before we head out. Amanda, I did want to ask you before we part company here. So first of all, do you ship your swag to Canada? And second, would you be open to licensing some of those really cool products so that Canadians can share them in some way because they're really funny?
Yes, to both.
Great. Okay, good. Good to hear. I laughed really hard throughout your presentation. It's very clever. Way to engage people with comedy. I love it.
Yeah, I actually just, this isn't related to AIS, but just as you were mentioning some citizen science stuff there, Tika. I'm just going to share this link to everyone and not do a private message again. But I don't know if anyone's ever heard of water rangers before, but just, with you mentioning like that BioBlitz thing and Coco Roz, just kind of made me think of that. So for anyone out there who's ever heard of water rangers, it's just a Canada-wide, I guess it's a worldwide citizen science project that did start, I think, based out of Ottawa. And so it just provides kind of like simple tools for people to go out and keep track of water quality data, whether it's clarity with SECI-DEP or, some basic pH values and conductivity values in the water. But, it's something I've participated in the pass through, not as a Grand Council employee member, but just, as myself on my free time off on the weekends. And so, that's just another citizen science project out there that, if you want to participate in it, it's, a great way to, participate in, helping protect the environment through whatever means you can.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's really interesting to see the number of citizen science programs that are available to people. I think one of the big questions I have as I'm learning more and more about this is how we're going to collate all of this information and make sure that it all gets shared with one another. Because it's really cool. There are so many repositories of data now. It would be really nice to not only know of them, but know how to use them all, sort of mix them all together and be able to access all that data. Okay, one last call for questions. And seeing none, I am going to call this one to an end. So hopefully we see you all back here in September. Watch your inboxes for an invitation to register for the fall webinar series. I'll send those out probably in early August, I think. But in the meantime, have a great summer. Stay safe, stay cool. It's been so hot in the basin in the past week, but cooling off a bit this week, I think. Enjoy the water, enjoy the outdoors. Wash your boats and have a great summer. Bye, everyone.